When we hold on to grievance and pain from the past, we keep ourselves from being able to really move into our fullest expression of self. We need to practice forgiveness from the soul recovery perspective, dissipating the energy and releasing the past for good. If you're interested in this profound transformation, I invite you to join me in Colorado the weekend of June 8th and 9th to have an incredible experience with others on this same soul recovery journey. 2 full days of immersion in the soul recovery process where you will indeed leave transformed. You will be able to truly let go of these old pains and step into a new way of being. Check out the show notes for a coupon code and how to register. It's easy to feel like we're stuck in our circumstances, that we've made some sort of a bed, we've started some sort of a path, and there's just no way out of it. But that's not true. In soul recovery, we're learning that we are taking our power back. We are learning how to be present in our life with everything around us. Maybe nothing around us changes, but we change. We take our lives and we transcend our circumstances. In this episode, inspired by an oracle card reading, we're looking at the patterns in our lives that set us up to think that we can't do better, that we can't have something different. And I'm here to tell you that you can. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Recover Your Soul podcast, a spiritual path to a happy and healthy life. My name is Reverend Rachel Harrison. I started Recover Your Soul after having profound changes in my life from my recovery of alcoholism, codependency, and control addiction. I was guided to share the tools and principles of spirituality and soul recovery to help others transform their lives as mine was transformed. For us to overcome external circumstances, we need to turn the attention to ourselves, focusing on our inner change and healing. Positive results in our lives will follow. Welcome to the Recovery Soul podcast. I'm Reverend Rachel Harrison, and I thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast today to be on your soul recovery journey. If you're new to the community, welcome to Soul Recovery. We're so glad you're here. And if you're coming back, I want to just say thank you for continuing to show up and do this work with me. I am honored to be part of your life. If you listen to the episodes before, you've heard me talk about oracle decks. I think oracle decks can be a great way to tap into your intuition, to ask questions of the universe and maybe get the guidance that is within you, the knowing that is within you to have some answers. And I love Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer is a New Thought minister. He has passed, but he is a profound teacher of wisdom. Rich and I have been listening to the Tao in his book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And every morning when we are up at the same time and having our coffee, we listen to one of the verses and hear Wayne's interpretation that has been really, really moving and helpful for my soul recovery. So I happen to have a Wayne Dyer oracle deck, and I like to say, okay, what am I supposed to speak about in an episode, universe? And I'll pull a card. So the card that I pulled was Transcend Your Circumstances. And I thought that was beautiful for soul recovery. It has a key as its emblem on the front where it says transcend your circumstances, because we feel like we're trapped in our circumstances. We feel like we're prisoner of our circumstances. And this is the key. So on the back, he says, by choosing to hang on to your corner of freedom, even in the worst situations, you can process your world with the energy of appreciation and beauty and create an opportunity to transcend your circumstances. This is my topic for today. And I love this because recently, around the 4th of July concepts, there were a couple talks that I gave at a variety of churches. So it's kind of interesting that this comes up with this. And the topic was freedom and also declaring your independence. And what I have found in spirituality is this ability for us to claim our freedom, to claim our independence, and to realize that there is this feeling that we are stuck, right? If you listen to the episode recently around freedom from codependency, the image that I grabbed for the thumbnail for that particular episode was a cage. And I talked about a cage in that episode as well. So we have this part of us that can feel like we're trapped, that can feel like we're stuck in our circumstances, that we can't get out, that the reason why that we're unhappy, the reason why we don't have any money, the reason why we're in a bad relationship, the reason why is these circumstances that are prominent or existing in our lives. This particular Transcend Your Circumstances goes along beautifully with the book that I'm listening to right now by Joe Dispenza called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And what I am so enjoying in my spiritual journey is how these building blocks of healing are happening for me. I'm letting go of the old blocks that were given to me in my childhood, the blocks that were given to me by society, the blocks that created the belief structures and the patterns that I had, that of course they did, right? So it's not about judging it. It's about actually having the freedom to say, of course I set up these belief structures because this is what was handed to me. This is how I was spoken to, or this is how I learned how I would receive love, or this is how I learned how to get approval. And that's what becoming ourselves is. That's how we establish our being. So this concept of Joe Dispenza, that breaking the habit of being yourself, is breaking those old concepts and opening up to new ways of thinking, new patterns, new ways of experiencing your life so that you can indeed, even in the worst situation, hold on to your freedom. That we can choose to be free even in the worst situations. And that we can process the world, as this Wayne Dyer card says, with energy and appreciation and beauty. That we can transcend our circumstances. And New Thought and the laws of quantum physics and all this spirituality and this concept of unlimited nature and the way that our brain works can feel like it's kooky bananas, to be honest. It can really feel like, oh, that's pie in the sky, that there's just no way that I can break out of these circumstances, that this is the bed that I've made and now I have to lie in it. And you've heard me before say, I don't think that if you have made a bed, that you've set up your life in a certain way, you've set up a situation in your relationships a certain way, that you have a certain set of circumstances in your life, that there's no way out. I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's magic. I don't think that you can close your eyes and click your heels together like Dorothy of the Wizard of Oz and wish to be whisked away and have it go back home to a better home. It's around this allowing yourself to slowly and surely make changes in your life that are cornered in freedom, that are cornered around the concept of claiming your independence from old belief structures, from old ways of being, and standing in a new way of thinking that will indeed slowly and surely walk down a path that is very different from the one that we were given as children, very different than the one we were given as society. And when we think that there's no hope for us, there is no hope for us. And when we open up to the belief that we can trust and allow the universe to provide for us the guidance, the awareness, the inspirations, and start to listen to that still small voice that is letting go of the need for other people to be a certain way, for us to be able to follow our dreams, to be able to be in relationships in a way that allows us to have happiness. things start to change. Radical things start to happen in our lives. Amazing amounts of change starts to happen when we change our perception just a little bit. Coming off the back of the card, how do you have appreciation for a hard situation? How do you look at a difficult situation with beauty? Most of us go back and replay the tapes of the difficult things that happened in our lives, the pains that got us to where we are, the circumstances that brought us to where we are. And we replay and replay and replay them. And in those replaying of these woundings, of these difficult situations, it can be really hard to find anything in them except for pain. Now, in soul recovery, what we're looking at is we're looking at letting go of the tape, letting go of the victim story, and opening up to what is the learning from it. What are the awarenesses that happened from it? What is the strength that can be pulled from it? Where do we start to realize I'm letting somebody else dictate for me how I feel? Where am I giving my power away and saying I can only be okay if the people in my life show up in ways that are how I want it to be? And in that, we are trapped in our circumstances. Now, people are going to be exactly who they are. And it's not about accepting the unacceptable. It's about starting to look at the situation from a perspective of acceptance and humility and patience and being conscientious of your perspective, of your perception, and noticing where maybe you're looking at it through your lens of how it's always been for you, what those tapes are that you've been playing, and noticing that we replay in our mind the thoughts and the feelings, and they recreate those thoughts and feelings in our existence right here today. So if you're in a circumstance that is painful or difficult, a relationship that's painful or difficult, a job that's difficult, we generally don't show up to that job or that relationship or that situation or circumstance as a new, clear human being in that moment. We generally show up with all of the baggage and all of the yuckiness that came before it. And we're looking through the lenses that are created through the scope of the previous experience. And of course we are, right? So this is what it is like. This is how we learn. This is how we become our personalities. This is how we become in our relationships and in our situations. If you're ready for soul recovery, as a spiritual coach, I can support your healing to help make real changes that will bring you a life of peace, happiness, connection, and abundance. You can also work in smaller groups by taking a deep dive in a Zoom workshop or with me in person at a retreat or an event. Join others on the soul recovery path once a month for the free Zoom support group or daily on the private Facebook page. Visit the website recoveryoursoul.net to book coaching sessions with me or find all the information you need about soul recovery, dates that are coming up, and how to register for those groups and workshops. To support the podcast and the community, check the links in the show notes to make a small monthly donation or a one-time donation of your choice that will make a huge impact to support this community and the soul recovery mission. Together, we can do the work that will recover your soul. Soul recovery and the concept of spiritual development and personal growth is around breaking up these old belief structures and moving into a new way of being and allowing ourselves to have the concept that we will always repeat the past patterns if we continue having the same behaviors and the same thoughts. It's just science. It is just human nature. It is the way that our bodies work. It's the way that our beings work. It's the way that it is. So if that's the way that it is, the only way to make change and to transcend our circumstances is to be willing to change how we think, feel, and see about it, to stop replaying the tapes, to open up to new ways of thinking, feeling, and believing, and to take those tapes and decide which ones we're going to archive and not play again. That if we decide that somebody is the villain in our life and that they're our nemesis, and every time we see them, we're thinking of all the times in the past that they said something unkind to us, or that they seemed condescending or were judgmental, every time we show up in that situation, we are already preparing ourselves for that behavior. Maybe they have that behavior. Maybe that's who they are. But we get to decide how we're going to let that come into us, and whether we're going to let that build up along with all the other things that have been built up with that before, or are we going to allow ourselves to hear what we choose to hear, to not take it personally, to not make assumptions, to recognize that that is that person's experience, that we don't need to take in what they are saying to us and have it prove what we had in the past, or the belief structure that's underneath that says we're not good enough, or that we're not smart enough or worthy, or whatever it is that it's backing up. And that we can just observe that human being and that circumstance and feel the freedom of saying, I get to choose how I hear this. I get to choose how I'm going to interact with this. I get to choose if I'm going to have compassion for this person and their viewpoint and not need to fight against it. I get to decide if I'm going to replay my pain in this, or whether I'm going to let it wash over me and not seep in. And I get to decide if I can let it go. I am responsible for myself here. I can transcend this, and I can see the complexity of this relationship, of this situation, and I can choose freedom. I can take the key and unlock the door of suffering, and I can let go of the attachment to this relationship and how it is. Now, that stuff's not easy. And it takes time to change our neuron paths in our brain. What I love about this book that I'm listening to at Joe Dispenza, and I'm only a couple chapters in, is it's giving me a lot more science around the stuff that I've been talking about here in Soul Recovery for years. As you know, I'm not new in any of this stuff that I'm talking about. This is not my creation of these concepts. It's how it has related to my life and how I've applied them in my life, and the successes that I've had in being able to completely change how I think and feel and believe, and how it has affected my life in a positive way to completely turn around my relationships, and more than that, to turn around my relationship with myself. That I am indeed an entirely different person than I was 5 years ago. And what I love that Joe Dispenza is talking about in his book is really around how our chemical structure and the way that our brains create proteins and the way that our neurons work, it's all science and it's all true. And that we can, through awareness and knowledge of how we've been repeating patterns and creating the same mistakes, the same thoughts, the same situations, make different choices in our lives to transcend our circumstances. That with clarity and awareness and utilizing the spiritual principles, it isn't just about thinking positive thoughts. It isn't about a spiritual bypass and saying, I'm just not going to think negative thoughts anymore. I'm not going to include myself in toxic relationships. I'm not going to do things that are harmful to myself. It's around making decisions in your life that are complete body, mind, and soul, and understanding the power of your thoughts, that even if you don't say something negative out loud, but you say it inside yourself, that is as powerful a situation as if you screamed it from the mountaintops. That really what we think in our head and the conversations we have with ourselves and how much we're going back and revisiting and ruminating over the lives that we had that were unhappy, taking those past situations and bringing them forward, we're dragging along with us forward that energy. So it is going to continue to express in our lives moving forward. As we're opening this door to freedom, as we're transcending our circumstances, we want to utilize the steps of soul recovery. We want to utilize the spiritual practices that we're learning. We want to build our foundation of our spiritual self with these building blocks that allow us to replace the old, unhealthy ways of behaving, thinking, and feeling with new ones, with new ways of how our brain works, so that we actually are chemically changing our structure. And it's interesting because then I think they say that your cells regenerate every 7 years. And I remember hearing this in a sermon that someone gave at my spiritual center years and years ago, that if you allow yourself this concept that our cells regenerate every 7 years, every single one, that we can completely regenerate ourselves. We can regenerate our health. We can regenerate our mind. We can regenerate what's happening within us by allowing ourselves to be open to complete change. So I'm still here as Rachel, 53 years old, but I can tell you from 5 years ago, I look different. People tell me all the time that I look entirely different. I feel completely different. My body feels completely different. My energy is different. My perception is different. Those abilities to grow and change gives us a key that says no matter what our circumstances are, no matter how sick we are, physically, emotionally, spiritually, we can remember our wholeness and we can let go of our sickness and we can transcend any circumstance. And we can remember that we are indeed being held in the arms of our higher power. That if we turn within, if we turn the attention to ourselves and we turn into that inner space of knowing, we can hear the guidance. We can hear our inner wisdom. We can begin to make small changes in our life that will affect huge changes down the road. And I've used this before, but when an airplane takes off on the runway, they don't just hold one steady course. They have to make constant adjustments to be able to tack to where they're going. And if they change their mind mid-flight and they wanted to go someplace else, they change course. We get to do the same things in our own life. Just because we started course in one direction doesn't mean we have to stay on that course. We get to choose. We get to transcend any circumstance, and we get to create the life that is more aligned with our higher self by choosing ourself and our own soul recovery. If you're in a situation in your life right now where it feels really overwhelming, listen to my voice. Listen to the knowing that is within you that says you are deserving and worthy of a life that is full and where you live from your highest self. And that may not mean that a lot of things change on the outside, that it might look the same relationships or the same family members, but you can change on the inside so that it feels different. That's the freedom. And then in those situations, I also find that the outside circumstances begin to change and shift too, because they're more aligned with your inner being. But you can control your inner being much more than you can control the world around you. Because as we know, as the first step of soul recovery, you can't control anything outside yourself. Feel that freedom. Notice and recognize that freedom in every circumstance, in every moment, in every relationship, and claim it and walk it and allow yourself to transform, to have that rejuvenation, to become a fuller you, to become your fullest expression of self. Until next time, namaste. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Recovery Soul podcast and being part of this amazing and growing community. If you loved this episode and you want even more, there is a bonus episode with even more content every Friday. This is by subscription. You can access that by being a Patreon member, and there's 3 tiers of giving of your choice, or an Apple Podcast subscriber. Once you have subscribed, you have access to a whole back catalog of episodes as well. These have interviews, more book studies, meditations, and even more on your soul recovery journey to help support you. So I thank you for becoming a subscriber for this additional content and how it helps support this community. If you would go to the website, recoveryoursoul.net, and I would love for you to subscribe to email updates so that you can keep posted with everything that's going on, different events, what dates are coming up, any reminders. There's only a couple emails each month. I hope you'll follow Recover Your Soul on social media. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, the private Facebook community page, TikTok, and if you want guided meditations, look for Reverend Rachel Harrison on Insight Timer. I really encourage you to take advantage of the one-on-one coaching. This is a unique, intuitive connection between the two of us. There are 9 steps to soul recovery, and I do use those 9 steps to loosely guide us through whatever your coaching that you need. But really, it's about creating a way for you to feel comfortable around your healing of your past, looking at the situations in your life. What are the patterns? What are the beliefs that are holding you back? Breaking free from those patterns, breaking free from those beliefs, letting go of control, letting go of the people around you and how they are making you feel, and taking your power back. Discovering who you are and who you want to be in the world and how I can support you to do this. It's actually not intended to be a long-term relationship. If you want to try a session, there is a discount code for your first session with me just to see if it feels like a good fit. I really try to keep the prices as reasonable as I can. This isn't about trying to charge what coaches do charge. This is about me being able to make a living to support you on your path. I am here to support you on your soul recovery journey. And also, you're sharing this podcast with your friends, putting 5 stars, leaving reviews, really sharing this with others is growing the community. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for supporting Recover Your Soul. And I know that together we can do the work that will recover your soul. The Recover Your Soul podcast and its content is for educational purposes only and is not allied or representative of any organizations or religions. It's based on the opinions and experience of Reverend Rachel Harrison. Recover Your Soul claims no responsibility to any persons or entity for any liability, loss, damage, or cause alleged to be caused directly or indirectly as a result of its use. Applications or interpretations of the information represented herein. Take what you need and leave the rest.